The Battlefield 1 beta, it's done, it's over, it's finished. And in the time while it was open, I managed to accrue 45 hours, which is, which is probably indicative of how much I enjoyed the Battlefield 1 beta. Probably the more I played it, the more I learned to like it. Because it is something you sort of have to learn to like, but we'll get into that in a moment. Let's start this off by saying I'm not coming at this from the point of view of someone who has never played Battlefield or shooters before. I'm a Battlefield veteran, one might say. Bad Company 2, I'm maxed ranked on the Xbox and the PC. Same with Battlefield 3, max ranked on the PC and the Xbox. Battlefield 4, 1,448 hours. I'm in no way new to the series, and I know a lot about balance and damage models, so please understand I'm not coming at this from the perspective of someone who doesn't know anything. Also, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the Battlefield 1 beta and my thoughts on it, I keep hearing that this is an old version, that this is a version of the game that predates the closed alphas that were released at first. That's what I hear, so keep that in mind. I'll be talking about weapon balance and things of that nature, and if something has been changed since this beta, well then, obviously disregard it. These are my beta impressions. It's just the beta here. Just the beta. And my thoughts on it. So, let's get started at the top, work our way down. I don't have a script, I just have some bullet points here. Let's start off with something that I think Battlefield 1 probably does better than anything else. And that is the art and aesthetics. The game looks not just graphically impressive, it looks immensely immersive. The game is beautiful, it's gorgeous. Everything from the way the weapons are designed to the way that the soldiers look to the environment itself really pulls you into the setting. I really think the game looks fantastic. I don't think anyone can really fault this game for not looking good. Not only did the game look fantastic, but it sounded fantastic as well. And that's good because there was a lot of stuff in Battlefield 4 and 3 and Bad Company 2 which could have been done better, especially in terms of sound design. However, with Battlefield 1, I think they knocked it out of the park. Guns sound either light and peppy or strong and weighty and heavy. There is a clunkiness to the sound of footsteps. The sound effects, especially related to vehicles, is probably the greatest aspect of the sound in this game. Being inside of vehicles and taking damage, for instance, you hear the reverberation of the metal and the steel around you, the way that the soldiers call things out, the explosions, the gun reports, the sound of engines, planes roaring overhead. It really, really sounds fantastic. And sound design is something that is often overlooked in games. But when sound comes together, as it does in Battlefront, for instance, it really pulls together an experience and makes it feel fantastic. The game looks great. It sounds great. Props to DICE for doing that. On to more gameplay-related aspects, let's take a look at the 4 classes, how they've changed, their usefulness, how I feel about them. Let's start off with, let's go in a row here. Assault. Assault, they use SMGs, shotguns, they have the anti-tank, anti-vehicle implements. For those of you who do not know, Battlefield 1 uses a class system in multiplayer. You have a loadout for your class. You could pick up the loadouts of soldiers on the battlefield, and you become that class. You don't swap out individual weapons, so you can't carry 2 assault rifles. There's no assault rifles in the game. You can't carry 2 SMGs, 2 LMGs, 2 sniper rifles. You can't swap out just your primary or your secondary weapon. You pick up kits. But Assault is the CQB class and the anti-vehicle class. It's going to be tough for me to really judge this class because we don't have access to all the equipment and all the weaponry again, but that'll be the same with all classes. But I feel like Assault is kind of in a good spot. You can't really reach out too far with the Assault class, but I feel that what it's supposed to do well, CQB combat, it does fantastically. The shotgun feels good. It feels weighty and powerful. It doesn't seem like it has too much range or too little range. The submachine guns in this game are really good with hipfire. They're very difficult to hit things at long distances, but they excel close up. This is a class that it's not too difficult to do well with, and I feel like they've made a good change in making Assault kind of like the new quasi-engineer, but again, it's just kind of different from Battlefield 4. Next up, there is the Medic class, and the Medic class is probably the class I play the second most of after Scout. But they use self-loading rifles. I might refer to them as DMRs. But the self-loading rifles are, well, they have some balance issues, but I'll get into the weapon balance in a little bit. But they can revive, they can heal people, they have access to some attachments you can put at the end of your rifle that shoot grenades and such. And those, I didn't see many people running around with those, and some of that might be due to the fact people haven't unlocked them yet. But in my experience of using these, they just didn't really seem all that useful. I stuck around for the most part with health kits and the syringe to revive people. The Medic's weapons seem potent. They were among the best weapons, perhaps the best weapons for medium range, and I'll get into the balance of those self-loading rifles later on. But with the health kits, with the ability to revive, with the limited usefulness of the rifle-mounted grenades and such, I feel like Medic's in a really good spot right now, and I'm very interested to see what other weapons and tools the Medic will have available to him as we proceed forward. I foresee a lot of people playing as the Medic because revival and giving health in this game is such an important aspect of it. So, let's move on to the next class. The next class is support. The light machine gun toting support class resupplies his friends and offers suppressive fire at medium and long distances with probably the most potency. He has typically larger magazines than the SMGs, and he has the ability to, when the bipod is used with weapons, and I'll get to the bipod in a little bit, lay down what I said before, suppressive fire, which really has a big effect in this game. Now, the suppression mechanic is still not the best. I'm really kind of mixed on how I feel about the suppression mechanic. I don't like the idea of random bullet deviation, especially in things like sniper rifles or precision weapons, because your opponent is missing you. But, I don't know, perhaps I'll talk about that later if I feel like it gets on my nerves more. The support class really helps to show the differences between the SMGs and the LMGs. They feel different, they behave differently. It's obvious that DICE built these two weapon classes for two different roles, with SMGs being for close distance and LMGs being for more moderate to longer distances. More on those later when I talk about the weapons themselves. But the class, apart from an equipment standpoint, apart from being able to give ammo to yourself and teammates, I mean, you could put down some trip mines and stuff like that, but the equipment really it didn't feel like it was all that useful. I felt like when you play support, you were playing because they had LMGs and you could give ammo to people. That seemed to be the primary reason why I played support, and it was definitely the least played class of mine. It seemed like it was the less interesting. It seemed like it was the least amount of fun. It was pretty much you, your light machine gun, and throwing ammo all the time to folks, because not a lot of people played support. So you kind of had to pick up the slack. You had to chuck bullets at people as much as you possibly can. You could get a lot of points doing it, but you were just constantly throwing bullets to people. The Scout is probably the class I saw the most of in Battlefield 1. The Scout is the sniper, and the Scout's equipment was pretty decent. He had a flare gun that could be used to spot, a little flashbang gun, flash flare gun, I forget the name of it, that would blind enemies if you looked at it, and it was indeed quite effective if you used it well. You could chuck that thing into buildings. Same with the flare. You could light people on fire. It was interesting to use the little flare guns. But sniper rifles really have quite a bit to say about sniper rifles. I'll get to those with the weapons. The weapon discussion bit I have later on. The class itself, in terms of equipment and the role it plays, it's really mixed. It's really mixed, and a lot of that has to do with the behavior that they gave to the sniper rifles in Battlefield 1 compared to what I thought was a pretty unbeatable system that they had in Battlefield 4. All in all, though, the classes do feel fairly well balanced with one another. It's difficult for me to truly say because, again, we don't have access to the full range of equipment and weaponry that they have at their disposal, and this is a beta, which is an older build of the alpha, I hear, so weapon balance might quite not be where it needs to be, and I know it's not, and I'll get into that in a moment. But those are not the only 4 classes in the game. No, no, no. If you spawn into vehicles, you spawn as like a commander, a pilot class, and same thing with planes. If you spawn on a horse, you spawn in as like this commander type character who's a little bit more damage resistant. He gets a Winchester and a sword, a saber, if you will. And I was able to do very well with those classes. And I'll get into vehicles later, though my experience with them is a little limited. I'm more of a feet on terra firma kind of guy. If anything, I would say probably the support class doesn't necessarily need better weapons, he just kind of needs more useful equipment. Of all the classes, I felt like I was playing these classes for their guns and their equipment, kind of both together. It wasn't like I picked a medic because I had the self-loading rifles. It was because, yeah, I had self-loading rifles, but also because I could, pick people up and I could heal people. They kind of went hand in hand. With support, I felt more like, oh, I just want to use an LMG, so I'm playing support. At the beginning of this video, I believe I said the more I played the beta, the more I liked it. The reason was because, again, I'm coming from Battlefield 4, in which I have 1,448 hours in. And the way that the weapons work in this game, the damage models, the limited technology of World War I, and how that is used in this game, it does have huge gameplay impacts on the way that you go about doing things in this game. And if you don't embrace those changes, if you don't embrace the differences in gameplay that come from the changes in weaponry, then you will do poorly. You can't run around in this game like Battlefield 4, where everyone has assault rifles with 30-round magazines where they can spray you down in 5 bullets and think nothing of it. Again, you have a lot of guns that have 10-round capacities, 5-round capacities. You have pistols that'll kill you in 3 shots. You have, probably most importantly, a melee focus, which is unprecedented in any of the Battlefields I've ever played. There's such a huge emphasis on melee in Battlefield 1, you have to get used to it, and again, you have to embrace the changes if you're going to do well. The changes are not done poorly. The changes are not done bad. Of course, I can always work on the details, but they're not bad changes. They're just different. And I found myself doing far, far better in the beta as more and more hours rolled by because I learned to use my weapons well. I learned to understand that this is not Battlefield 3, it is not Battlefield 4, and you have to play accordingly to that. So there. There's a much bigger emphasis on pistols in this game. There's a much bigger emphasis on maybe shooting, getting behind cover, maybe not shooting every person you see right, at the moment you see them, but maybe watching, waiting, finding the opportune moment for you to take your targets out, saber, sword, and showing a little bit of discipline. Not just trigger discipline, which I found is very important in this game. Again, when you have guns that have 5, 10-round capacities, spraying bullets down over enemies is often not the best idea. Using cover well, positioning your character well, knowing when to shoot and when not to shoot, knowing when to use weapons, like should I keep using my pistol? Should I swap to my melee? Should I close in with this? Should I do that? They have the whole the bayonet aspect of the game where you can charge forward with a bayonet and stab mofos. You have different melee weapons that will do different damages, that have different ranges, that swing and attack at different speeds. You have to use these weapons in tandem with your primaries, I've noticed. For instance, if you have a bolt-action rifle, which does a lot of damage, but there's a lot of reload time, and you don't have very much capacity, I found it's best to equip a trench knife, for instance, for your melee weapon, so if you hit someone with that bolt action, they're still alive, but they're very weak, and you have the long range of the trench knife, so you can get up and stab somebody to finish them off. Whereas perhaps if you had an SMG, which does more damage, but it's kind of spread out, it's not all at once, you could hose somebody down a bit and then come in for the melee attack to finish them off. It's about finding a good balance between your primary, your secondary, and your melee weapon. This was an aspect of other Battlefields, but I think in Battlefield 1, more than any other game, it will be more important. Finding weapons and equipment that complements your loadout itself will help you do way better in this game than not doing that. Again, bolt actions and trench knives, or SMGs and hatchets, that sort of thing. I spoke about SMGs being really good in the game. They have good hip fire, they're tough to use at a distance, they're inaccurate. I think they're where they need to be. In contrast, the other automatic weapons in the game, the light machine guns, fill a role that the submachine guns do not. They can shoot with automatic fire rates at a fairly accurate level if you're standing still especially. They're good for suppression. They're good for standing there or using their bipods and hitting a target at a moderate distance with fairly good accuracy. They behave differently than SMGs. You can tell that they are clearly meant for different ranges. They clearly play different roles, and I like that. In Battlefield 4, SMGs, assault rifles, light machine guns, a lot of the times they were completely interchangeable. There were SMGs that behaved almost like assault rifles. There were a lot of LMGs that behaved like assault rifles. There were assault rifles that behaved like SMGs. There was this gray nebulous sort of SMG assault rifle, LMG kind of... Just they were all kind of mushed together, and in a lot of ways, if you weren't told that it was a light machine gun, you wouldn't be able to differentiate it from a assault rifle. Well, you can definitely feel the difference between SMGs and LMGs in this game, and I never felt like the game was worse off because of the quote-unquote prevalence of automatic weapons in a World War I setting. I felt like the game handled them very well. I didn't feel like just because someone had an automatic weapon, I was going to lose against them. There were many, many times where my LMG, or my self-loading rifle, beat out an SMG in close range, or an LMG at long range. Most people were running around with sniper rifles, bolt-action rifles, and self-loading rifles. I never felt like everyone was going around spraying and praying. Maybe they were, but I just didn't get that feeling about the game. The weapons all sort of seemed potent and usable. So while SMGs and LMGs I think are really good, by the way, yes, I am sort of rambling about this. It's the way it is, get over it. So while SMGs and LMGs fit well into their respective categories and fill their roles very well, I have serious concerns about the self-loading rifles in terms of balance and the gameplay impacts of the new change in damage to the bolt-action rifles. But I'll start with each. I'll start with the self-loading rifles. The self-loading rifles they're usable. However, the balance between the three that we had was abysmal, absolutely abysmal. And if you are curious about the very finer aspects of the damage models and the reloads and the ADS accuracy, all this stuff about weapons, go to Simthink.com. The guys over there have an excellent chart that shows you all the information you could possibly ever want to know, and even more than that, about the weapons featured in the Battlefield 1 beta, where you can check out all the things that I'm saying, and you can maybe get used to the weapons, choose which ones you like, see which ones are best in different circumstances. But back to the self-loading rifles, I have serious gripes with the balance concerning them. Maybe this has already been taken care of, I don't know. Again, these are beta impressions, I'm going by what I saw in the beta. The four SLRs that you get, the self-loading rifles that you get in the game, are horribly balanced. Now, the self-loading rifles that you have access to in the beta, there were 4 of them. There was the Regatti, the M1907, the Mondragon, and Mondragon? Yeah, I don't care. I don't care if I mispronounce your name. These are not English words, so I don't give a fuck. And the Selbstlader. Selbstlader. Of these guns, the Selbstlader is obviously the best of them all. Without a doubt, no questions asked. Yeah, you could do okay with all of them. Absolutely. I used all of them extensively. You can do okay with all the guns. But the Selbstlader, it holds 21 rounds, and it's magazine fed. It always kills in 3 shots. It comes with the scope. And then you have the Regatti in them. It takes 4 shots to kill people. They only hold 10. They're not magazine fed, so you have to use stripper clips or reload them individually. The balance is fudged up, okay? I hope they really rebalance these rifles better, because right now, there's really no reason to not be using the Selbstlader. The other guns, again, you can do well with them, but when you get a guaranteed 3-shot kill, double the magazine capacity, that's magazine fed, and you have the option of putting a scope on it in the beta, there was really no after the novelty of using weapons wore off, and I was using weapons based on how good they were and how well I could perform with them. I always opted for the Self-Slaughter. The Mondragon, the Rigatti, the 1907, they just couldn't compare. They just could not compare. When you factor in also the fact that there seems to be a bullet deviation based on, even on the first shot with weapons. And the weapons had an inherent inaccuracy to them, the self-loading rifles did. And I wish they were more accurate. It made counter-sniping a lot more difficult with these DMRs, these self-loading rifles. You couldn't just put your crosshair on something in the distance and have it go there and hit that one point as long as you were taking your time with your shots. Your weapons, your bullets did deviate. There was a limited range that your rifles had because the bullets would not go where the reticle was. In Battlefield 4, for instance, you'll recall, pretty much all the weapons would go right where you point them at, for the most part. So even at long distances, you could use short-range guns to hit targets. It just wouldn't do that much damage, and the recoil would mean that you couldn't, keep peppering them down with fire. You had to really watch as your reticle bobbed and time it correctly. DMRs in this game don't seem to... Well, they're not like the DMRs in Battlefield 4. They seem less accurate. They seem more focused on medium-range combat than longer-range combat. So that was something you had to get used to, but once you got used to it, once you kind of found the role, the magic sweet spot that you could really use these self-loading rifles in, I did better with them. I just hope that they really work on the balance between these rifles, because like I said, of the 4 options you had, one, the Self-Slaughter, it just blew the others out of the water. Way better than the others. Now let's talk about the bolt-action rifles, and this is really where I have the biggest issue with Battlefield 1. And considering this is my biggest issue, I suppose that's good for the game, because even my biggest issue with the game is something that's workable with. It's doable. It doesn't ruin the game. It's just, The bolt-action rifles in this game do not do the most damage up close, and then their damage slowly but surely pitters off to about 59-ish or 60, like the rifles did in Battlefield 4. You can't just walk around with a bolt-action rifle in close-quarter combat, thinking that you could use it as a high-risk, high-reward weapon, where if I hit him point-blank with my sniper rifle or with my bolt-action rifle, I'll drop him if it's a chest shot or a headshot. Unfortunately, as I said, that's not the case. I wish it was, though. Instead, rifles can do as little as 60 damage point-blank. However, their damage can get to a maximum of 100 if you hit them in the magical sweet spot. What do I mean by this? All right, these are from Synthic.com. Again, excellent website to look at damage models and all the statistics you could ever hope you needed to want to know about guns. The math that they do over there, everything from bullet drag to deviation to all that stuff, it's crazy. So go over there, check it out, support that site. Up top, we have the Gewehr 98 Sharpshooter. That's how you pronounce it, Gewehr. And don't worry, I didn't know about it either until I heard Ian from Forgotten Weapons talk about it. So, the Gewehr 98 Sharpshooter and the Rifleman. Now, this is the one I preferred the most, but you can clearly see that they start off at 80 damage, and then they have that high point where it goes up to 100 damage, in that sweet spot area where it does more damage at those distances. So, around 80 to 120 meters is that 100 damage magic range where the bullet will somehow magically do more damage. And I had someone in the chat in the game try to explain to me that there were realistic reasons how the optimum velocity of a bullet was between 80 and 100 meters. So, some people think that's how guns really work. But I'm not going to argue for realism here because that's dumb. I think that there are gameplay aspects to this I don't really like. And again, you see down there the SMLE Mark III carbine, the one you start off with, by the way. It's better for close range engagements because the sweet spot for that starts at 40 meters. And I believe it ends at around 80-ish, 70-ish. I appreciate them trying something new. I really do. But I don't know why they took a system like they had in Battlefield 4, which I thought would work really well in this game because, again, like slugs, in a pump-action shotgun, bolt-action rifles could provide the potential for a high-risk, high-reward style of gameplay, where as long as you were accurate and hit your targets with your slow-firing and low-capacity weapons, you could reap the benefits of it. But again, if you missed, there would be windows of opportunity where you could be counter-attacked. Yes, by the way, the saber on the horse is broken. The reason I don't like this is because, and again, I've learned to live with it, and I can understand, and I'm not going to bitch too much about it, all right? It's a change. It's something in the game. I get it. It probably won't be altered based on this video. I just don't think it's a good change, and here's why. Battlefield 1 is about playing the objective. Battlefield 4, Battlefield Bad Company 2, Battlefield is about playing the objective. It's about, I want the game to encourage all the classes to contribute to the team effort, be it with spotting, with capturing objectives, with attacking, defending. And when you take a weapon that could potentially be very good close up, and instead say, no, it's not going to be good close up. Instead, what it's going to do is it's going to be good in a lot of essences the further away you are from a target. To me, this seems like it's encouraging people to stay away from the objective. It's encouraging snipers and scouts not to go up there, not to get into the objective, not to go into battle, but to stay in the back where their weapons will be most effective. Even though it'll still take 2 shots to kill, most effective. I don't think this is a good change. I would rather that the bullets, I would rather that the bullet damage be like what it was in Battlefield 4, where a scout could go into close quarter situations, and if he was good enough with his rifle, potentially do a lot of damage. I would prefer that far over having sniper rifles have that magical 100 damage at 80 meters, 100 meters, 60 meters away. Does it make them feel unique in terms of weapons? Yes. Does it mean that there is an extra metric sort of for you to look at for these guns to choose which one's your favorite? Yes. I understand why they changed it. I just don't think it was the best idea for them to change. Maybe I can be convinced that this is a change for the better. But as it stands now, I don't think that, for gameplay reasons, this was the best thing to do. And I use the Gewehr Rifleman extensively. So the iron sight version of the Gewehr, I used it all the time. It was probably my favorite bolt-action rifle. After the, it probably was my favorite. And I could do really well with it, because I'm a good shot. I'm good at FPSs. But again, when someone is right next to me, and I have this big gun that shoots a big bullet, and I've only got 5 shots, and it's bolt action, so I have a slow rate of fire. I really think it would just be better if it killed in one hit from the upper body up, instead of me having to hit them once, then go in for a melee kill or finish them off with a pistol. Some could disagree, and I understand disagreement. That's fine. That's how I feel. That's what my preference would be. As for the other types of weapons, though, the shotgun feels really, really good. It feels like it doesn't have too much or not enough range. The slugs, I don't think people will end up using the slugs, because they seem kind of like a bad bolt-action rifle. I found myself only using the slugs for not too long, because I would rather have buckshot. I'd rather just be able to kill people in one shot, close up, not have to worry about, well, is this like a magic place for it, or do I have to aim, or, oh, the scope isn't very good for it. I've done well. There's footage here that shows I could do really well with them, but I prefer gosh, it's hard to believe that I almost said that I prefer the reliability of buckshot. But I did crazy good with shotguns in this game, but at the same time, I wasn't able to abuse them, and I definitely was killed at long range if I got my character in the open, or in places where shotguns definitely didn't excel. Now, as for the melee in the game, the melee weapons have a variety of attacking speeds, attack damages, and ranges at which you can initiate your melee attacks. You can either go up to someone and just try to smack them down with melee weapons, which can take between 2 to 3 hits, depending, and at a speed that is also depending on your weapon, which is why I said earlier it was very important for you to choose a melee weapon that was complementary to your sidearm and your primary weapon. I didn't have the problem of people just running around trying to club others to death, which was a worry that I did have, but it was alleviated, thank goodness. It does seem like this is something that'll get you killed. A melee weapon isn't your go-to implement of death. It complements your primary and secondary weapons. It's good for finishing enemies off or getting them killed silently when they're not looking. Hitting an enemy from the side or the rear will instantly kill them, whereas hitting them from the front will you just hit them from the front and do a certain amount of damage, and then they'll kill you because they have a gun, and guns beat axes. But if you're good with footwork, if you can really juke and jive, if you're good at moving left and right, if you're good at peeking around corners, if you're good at hitting people once, finishing them with melee, you can do really good in CQB. Because Battlefield 1 definitely does have an emphasis on almost like a metagame with CQB. For those of you who ever played Halo Reach, for instance, I know it seems like an odd comparison, but bear with me. In Halo Reach, you had shields, and you would wither down someone's shields until the shields were gone, and then you would hurt their health, and then they died, ideally. However, if you were to, for instance, melee somebody who had just a tiny sliver of shields left, you wouldn't kill them. There wasn't like a damage bleed through with the shields in your health. You had to completely get rid of an enemy's shields before you finish them off with a melee. So, if you got someone down to, again, 1% of shields left and meleeed them, then you would just do 1% of damage to their shields. Battlefield 1 has a system kind of like this, where you want to kind of do a certain amount of damage to an enemy, and then you want to hit the melee button to finish them off, but you don't want to hit it too early, and you don't want to hit it too late. So there is sort of this, again, this odd metagame that kind of comes along with CQB, melee weapons, and primary weapons in the game. As you play the game, you'll sort of understand what I'm talking about. And if you use this well, if you learn your weapons, if you learn your melee implements, if you're sneaky and hiding behind doors like a faggot, then you can do very well. The bayonet charge is overall pretty good and fairly reliable. The kinks should probably be worked out, but for the most part, we'll talk about this piece of shit later. This class, this Sentry. But with the bayonet charge, it seemed useful in a number of ways. Obviously, it was good at, stabbing people with the pointy bit and killing them. It was very useful in that aspect because it was good at ambushing people. For instance, if you know someone's perhaps in a room next to you, you could charge through the door and come at them, and ideally position yourself and choose to charge in a way that would not give them enough time to react. But people who would blindly just try to charge you at a distance, they got dropped. For the most part, bayoneting someone in the open when they can see you is not a wise thing to do. The smarter you are with your bayonet charge, the better you can get. It's not just this stupid, barbaric running at people and stabbing them. There really was a level of skill and a level of a learning curve almost to when it was best to bayonet charge and when it was best to not, or just run away. And I did find myself running away from people in the game a lot. As Frodo said in The Lord of the Rings, the old one, the cartoon version, from the 70s, which pissed me off because they ended at like the end of the Two Towers. They didn't go into the Return of the King. The movie literally ended with, oh, you need to read the books to find out what happens next. Like, what the fuck? No, I want to see what happens, damn it. Anyway, go check it out. Also, Wizards, excellent movie from the 70s. They're like Nazis and elves fighting each other. It was really trippy. Excellent movie, though. Tangent aside, what was I talking about? Bayonet charges, melee, I forget. Oh, yes, running away. He who fights and runs away lives to fight another day. With the limited effectiveness of weapons in this game, especially in terms of ammo capacities, damage models, and how many enemies you can take out before you have to start reloading and put yourself out of the fight for a moment as you refill all your weaponry with their appropriate ammunition, I found myself running away a lot, really picking my fights. Call me a coward, but when I see two guys and I've got a shitty weapon, or when I'm not in a position to take on those two guys, I'm gonna run away, or I'm gonna shoot one and then try to get around a corner and use my melee weapons. You see a couple clips of me, maybe hiding behind a doorway, waiting for someone to follow me so I could stab them in the back, like a brave person. Again, the smarter you play, the better you will do. It's not just about running out and gunning people down with your assault rifle anymore. There is a certain level of thought that you want to put into the way you fight other players. In any event, I've kind of rambled on enough about this sort of thing, so I'm going to wrap this up as best I can. Talked about the weapons, the SMGs, LMGs, bolt action, self-loading, melee weapons. Let's talk about vehicles. I'm not a big vehicle guy. As I said, I prefer the soles of my feet on terra firma. That's just kind of how I am. I could do really well with vehicles. It's just not my forte. I prefer to be an infantryman. I'd rather not speak about vehicles all too much, because in the beta, like what you're seeing me use here, this anti-tank rocket gun was very effective and you could use it very well, but few people seem to have it or use it and have it unlocked yet and stuff. And we don't have the full range of equipment that can be used against tanks. Tanks were extremely powerful in this game. They were dominant in this game. But I think that has to do with the fact it is a beta. Not everybody has all the anti-tank weaponry available yet. It's not that they seemed overpowered. It was mostly just that there weren't enough people with the proper anti-tank weaponry shooting back at them. It was very common to see people in a tank the whole game just running around, machine gunning every motherfucker that they saw, basically unopposed. A lot of this has to do with teamwork. Again, there's a lot of plebeians and lone wolves playing this game. It is a beta. So I'm going to kind of reserve judgment on how the vehicles function in the main game. I don't think they'll be overpowered by any stretch of the imagination. I really don't. The tanks themselves don't seem overly strong. But in the beta, they definitely were. But I don't think that's the fault of how strong they were. Again, it was a limited usage of anti-tank equipment against them and its availability. Talking about planes, though, planes were very fun. Not necessarily to drive. The driving of planes and the piloting of them seemed a little wonky compared to Battlefield 4. But gunning in the planes was very fun. The way the plane tilted and turned, the fact that you were sitting on the outside of the plane, you could see the gun in your hands, you could look around down the wings, you could see the other people in the plane, the pilot, the potential other gunner. It really, really almost gave me like a sense of vertigo when I started out using it. Of course, I have a really good computer with G-Sync and all that stuff. It really, really kind of puts you in this, whoa, I'm flying around in a plane and I've got my gun and I'm shooting down the other guys. Plane-on-plane battles where someone's driving your plane and you're shooting at the plane following you and he's shooting at you. Those are really exciting moments. And the air-to-air combat in this game was really fun. I found myself enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would, and I would encourage everyone to get into a little dogfight of their own. The turret emplacements were potent and powerful. What else on the subject of vehicles? I'm really not a vehicle guy, so I'm just going to stop talking about vehicles. Go listen to another YouTuber if you need more vehicle in-depth information. It's just not my forte. It's not what I do. I'm not about that. I'm not about that life. You see, I didn't choose the tank life. The tank life chose me. The map design. Sinai Desert is kind of like a worse version of Golmud Railway. It wasn't a bad map, but I think that the prevalence of scopes with sniper rifles, which I hate, by the way. I hate how everyone's got a scope on the sniper rifle and how powerful it is or high zoom it is. I wish that like the scopes were like 4 times zoom and lower. Or maybe they had like artillery sights, which gave you like a 2 times zoom, like low zooms or iron sights. I hate how many scopes there were out there in World War I. Again, I could deal with it, but it had a lot of wide open spaces between the points. I don't really think the points were spread out in the best way. It was an okay map. It was all right. One problem I had with the map was the point spawning. For instance, spawning on D basically meant you would spawn in the middle of a desert. Spawning on Bravo, you would spawn way behind the point in some rocks, and you had to clear a large segment of open terrain in order to get to the point itself. I wish they would work on the spawns for the point so that you wouldn't have to cross so much open territory before you were able to get to cover. Overall, though, Sinai Desert was an all right map. The points were spread out fairly evenly, and while there were places on the map for every weapon type to succeed and excel, it really did seem like a sniper's paradise. And I really hope that maps don't follow this pattern that I'm seeing. Just, there were snipers everywhere. Just snipers everywhere. You'll see me sniping because, I mean, fuck, this map has so many open spots. Just the layout, it's like it's begging to have you snipe in it. And couple that with the weird wonky damage models of sniper rifles now, and the snipers everywhere, man. I mean, that's all I was really going to cover for the most part. I want to reserve most of my judgment for when the game actually comes out, but based on what I've played. And again, the more I played, like, see the spawning, right? The more that I played the game, the more I enjoyed it. I think Battlefield 1 is going to be a very good game. Oh, I remember the sentries. You could pick up these, you can go to equipment boxes. There are two. One is at F, and the other one is at B, I believe. There's a flamethrower dude, and there's a sentry dude. They are extremely powerful, almost invincible, if you're looking at them from the front. Though you can melee them in the back and finish them off, as you've seen a few times in the footage here. But I have seen people go easy 20-0 with the sentry, for instance. The flamethrower, very, very, very powerful. These are strong, sturdy classes that just dominate at close ranges. The sentry especially can sit around in the city in the corner, sit on buildings, and just mow people down. He gets 1,200 rounds of ammunition. He is nearly impervious to bullets. And so unless you get around him, get behind him, he's just... You're just going to lose. I was stuck in a room with one once, and I hit him point blank with 4 shotgun shells, and he still had 23 health left. And he just mowed me down. Really don't like this. I don't know what these things add to the game. DICE, please. I know you're not going to, but can you please just remove them? Having this one super strong class wandering around the map, just raking up kills. I mean, that's what these classes really are. They're just KD boosters, and I don't like that. I'm sure I have more thoughts to give, but I'll wrap it up now, and I promise I'll actually wrap it up this time. Battlefield 1 seems like a really good game. The more you play it, the more you'll enjoy it, and the better you'll do. If you embrace the new changes with the weapons and the map and the equipment and the guns, then you can excel. You want to not try to fight the changes in a lot of ways. You want to embrace them. You want to learn how to use them most effectively. You want to learn the melee. You want to learn the self-loading rifles, the bolt-action rifles. You want to respect the damage models, learn them, and then you can excel. I think Battlefield 1 on its release will shape up to be a very fun game. I was loving the game. I was having a blast. I wasn't playing the game for footage. I was playing it because I was enjoying it. I was having fun. It felt really great. Also, the hit detection's a little wonky sometimes. But overall, when they work out the kinks of, the typical game launches, if the game doesn't have a catastrophic launch like Battlefield 1 did, if EA can keep their shit together, if DICE can support the game over the years as they did with Battlefield 4, I really see this game as something people will come back to. And weapon customization wasn't in the game. A lot of stuff was locked off. We didn't have our access to the full range of weaponry and equipment. I'm very excited to see what stuff Battlefield 1 has in its full iteration. So with that, those are my thoughts on the Battlefield 1 beta. You guys go and do with that what you will. Because there you go. Those are my thoughts. So I'm going to drink this soda. And I'm going to go, I don't know what I'm going to do. Delicious. Oh, one more thing. Look, guys, when someone is yelling at you for ammunition, when he's in front of you and he's screaming, ammo, please give me ammo. I know it's a foreign language, all right? But you see the icon on his head, and you can see in the chat, please give me ammo. I can type in the chat, please give me ammo. Give people ammo. There's only like 3 support guys on the team at one given point because no one plays support. Please give ammo. All right, this happened in Battlefield 4. Give people fucking ammo, all right? It's really frustrating to be following an ammo guy around, begging him on your knees, please, bullets, please, I need bullets. I need bullets so bad. Just give people ammo. If you're playing a support, give people ammo. You need to be chucking that shit out like hotcakes. I mean, they're not your bullets. You're not paying for them. You're not paying for them. The British Empire's paying for them, okay? And they got more money than God. Just throw that shit to everybody that you see. If they spawn, I don't care if you just saw them spawn behind you. Throw bullets at them anyway. Build up a habit of throwing bullets at your teammates. And then throw bullets at the enemy in the traditional manner. So there, rant over. Those are my thoughts on Battlefield 1.